Hello, yet again. Catharism's unique philosophy. Cathar Love 167. I was talking to a friend, quite a smart guy, a few days ago, and I was quite surprised. He'd had a bit of a hard time, but he said to me he regards it as punishment, punishment from God or whatever. And I said, really? He said, oh yes. He said, oh, I believe in guilt and punishment. I said, oh really? I said, oh, I think you're giving yourself a bit of a hard time. And I just was amazed at what he said. And yet when I thought about it, I thought this is really what most Christians, Jews and Muslims, this is the basis of their life. This is what they're taught. This is their teachings. That you commit a sin and you'll be punished, and you feel guilty for committing that sin. So I looked at the Cathar Philosophy, and to the Cathars, it's impossible to sin against the source. Hitler might have wiped out 25 million people, including 6 million Jews. But it's not a sin against God. You cannot sin against God. You cannot sin against the Cathar referred to God as the source. You cannot sin against the source. It's impossible. We can sin against humanity. We can commit crimes, which goes against our laws. But you can't sin against the Creator. And you can't do God's work. The source, God, doesn't need anyone to assist and help. I think that's pretty impertinent. Really. So I suppose the thoughts have been gelling in my mind, and so here we have this Cathar Philosophy. Now obviously I can't speak about all of the Cathar Philosophy, but I can speak about some things. The other thing is, and why Catharism, the philosophy, is unique, is that if there is a church to Catharism, it's each person is the church. It's an individual thing. Each person's journey is unique. It's like a rose. We might be all belong to that, we call it the Lincoln rose, the deep red with a beautiful smell. It's such a gorgeous rose. It's beautiful as a bud. When it's in full bloom, it's beautiful, and even as it's wilting and dying, it's still a beautiful rose. From beginning to end, it's a thing of beauty. From its birth until its death. And it gives off this beautiful aroma. And yet, I grow the Lincoln roses, and yet, every rose, even though it's a Lincoln rose, is unique. It's different. Each bud is different. Each full-blown rose is different. And it's similar to Catharism. We all belong to the Cathar family, those of us who do belong. But each of us is unique. Each of our journeys is unique. There's a very simple reason for that. And that is that the future is not set. Now, there may be major aspects in our lives which were going to happen from the day we were born, and that's part of our purpose on our journey in life. But the thing is that everything that we say and think and do and act is today is creating our future realities. So the way we live our life today and the present is already creating our future realities. A friend of mine, I remember we were sitting in bed and she said to me, she said, I'm really worried about the future. And I said, look, I can tell you one thing, that if you're miserable today, you'll probably be miserable tomorrow. But if you try and make the most of today and create as much joy and happiness as you can today, then that's already creating your future. What I will do is I will place down in writing the Cathar Philosophy, so that there are, quite apart from me speaking it, there will be cards that will actually put down concisely some of the aspects of the Cathar Philosophy, which is quite unique. Another thing that makes it unique is that we are a soul with a body, not a body with a soul. To the major religions, you're a body and you have a soul. To the Cathars, you're a soul, you are a transcendent being. Within our makeup, we have a body and we have a soul. And that soul has, part of it has the higher aspects to the soul, and then there's the sensual aspects, the materialistic aspects to the soul. So we can move or evolve towards the higher aspects of our soul, of our spiritual being, or we can cater to the sensual aspects of our lives and the sensual materialistic aspects of our lives. Ideally, it's nice to have a foot in both worlds. We are here, and being alive, we should celebrate life. And there's nothing wrong with the good things of life. In fact, what's wrong is when you don't have them, when you're poor. Poverty, there's nothing wonderful about poverty. What we need is a decent life, education for our kids, married if we're going to get married, we want a decent place to live, and so forth, education. And that's materialistic. But we also need to be looking after our spiritual aspects of our lives, so that we've got a foot in both worlds, a foot in the world of spirit, in the spiritual world, the mystical world, but we're here, whether we like it or not. We have to live and eat and cater for ourselves and our family. That's the materialistic world. But we're aware of both. So that already makes Catharism quite distinct and unique. The other thing is that to the Cathars, the body is always innocent. So that begs the question, why do the religious people go around punishing their bodies, punishing their innocent bodies? If there is a culprit, if there needs to be a culprit, needs to be something guilty or not guilty, a culprit, It's the mind. It's the mind. So, but not the body, because the mind controls the body. Being a soul with a body means that we are basically transcendent beings. So an essential aspect of Catharism is moving into this transcendent state. First is being aware of it. The transcendent state is simply that there's something paraphysical, paranormal, mystical, spiritual at these levels. To move from one state to the other is transforming, is transformation. This doesn't necessarily mean anything this isn't only Catharism, this is any spiritual state, that if we want to become more spiritual and mystical beings, we have to transform, we have to move, make a conscious decision to move in that direction. What happens is the mystical comes into play, and things that are very spiritual, mystical, paranormal, metaphysical, things that are not normal will happen. Good things. Surprise us, delight us. And that's telling us that we're moving in the right direction. They're signposts to tell us we're moving in the right direction. They're not going to write us a letter. So anybody can do this, but I'm speaking from the Cathar point of view. The Cathars also, they had what they call, quite apart from the soul, the divine spark. The divine spark is our innermost being, our essence, and the God to the Cathars is referred to as a source, because when we say God we tend to think of light and an old person with a beard and more or less the biblical type of God, whereas to the Cathar the source is unknown. Only the source knows itself. It is being itself. This comes back to the Platonic, Socratic idea of God, that there's a source of all, but is an unknown source. Upon our creation, what happens is a spark from the source, we call it a divine spark, issues forth from the source, and we come into being. Once we come into being, once we are created, we are given the gift of immortality for eternity. This divine spark, this is our vital, our innermost core, beyond the soul. This also makes Catharism unique as a philosophy, although this knowledge, Gnostic knowledge if you wish to call it, was known to the ancients long before Judaism and the faiths ever existed. These are ancient truths, and mystics from all over the world at different times have come out and spoken about it. is the purpose of every divine spark to return to the source. But before we do, we're on a journey. That journey takes us through reincarnation, multiple lifetimes, for us simply to gain the experience, that's their experience. We leave as a child, but we return with wisdom. And that wisdom is based upon all those earthly experiences, both materialistic, sensual, sexual, joyful, all different types, the highs and the lows, the good, the bad, and the ugly of life. And to experience them all, we need multiple lifetimes. Hence, reincarnation. I've mentioned it before, but this young boy in the States, and he annoyed his parents because he said that he had another lifetime and that he was burnt in another lifetime, and it was burnt in the hotel. He named the hotel in Los Angeles, and eventually his parents, who were Christians, they certainly didn't believe in reincarnation, but the father was driving him crazy, so he decided to check it out, and he checked on the fires in New Orleans, and it was a hotel. He knew it was a hotel, and the child, 6 or 7 or 8, whatever he was, it's on YouTube, and he spoke about it, and so the father checked it out, and yes, there was this hotel, and it was set on fire, and these people burned. But the thing was, this young kid who's a real blonde and white, very white skin, a blonde child, and he gave the name of the person that he was the woman, who he was, and the father looked it out, and she was a black lady. And so this person's previous reincarnation was as a black woman in the United States of America. I presume in the 30s or 20s, and so she would have had her share of hard times. But in this lifetime, he's this child, blonde-haired child in a middle-class American family. So, this reincarnation, when you realise you're different, you're gay, you're straight, you're black, white and brindle, you've been all these various religions and no religions, you've killed and been killed, and all these different races that you've been, and different languages and different cultures and different traditions, and you realise that it's all a joke. It's all, and when you understand and you look at reincarnation and the larger picture, there's no racism has no basis on actual fact. But if you believe this is your body, you're a body with a soul, and this is your one lifetime, and that's all you've got, whether it was a miserable lifetime or a wonderful lifetime, that's all you've got, and you're going to be judged in that lifetime. You're going to spend an eternity in heaven or eternity in hell, and there's a day of judgment and all that type of stuff. Well, God help you. But when you understand this Cathar philosophy, and that we're just one world of many worlds, this is one lifetime of many lifetimes, and we're here to experience all these different things, you understand that we have the sensual aspect of our nature, we have the higher spiritual aspects of nature, and we decide that we're living in a material world, but even within that world we're still going to move towards our higher spiritual natures, and it's something opening up a wider picture, and it's a beautiful picture, and ultimately it's the ultimate purpose of every divine spark to return to the source. And at some point that our cycle of reincarnations will finish. When? I can tell you. If you can say, I don't worry about anything, I have lots of things concern me and so forth, but I'm not worrying about them, I don't fear either living or dying. I'm more than happy to live, but I'm just as happy to die. Doesn't matter. I'll move to the world of spirit. There's nothing really to fear. And you love, you treat everybody with tolerance and respect. You have unconditional love for everybody and everything, everywhere. And that includes the trees and the rocks and the environment. Well, you're probably ready to step off the wheel of reincarnation. But if you're still a warrior and you're fearful and you've got all these different problems and all these things, you're carrying these rocks around with you, unnecessary rocks, well then you're probably going to have a lifetime. If you don't sort it out this one, there'll probably be at least one more for you to sort it out. So it's no big deal. There's nothing to worry about there either. I enjoy being a Cathar because I'm aware of the Cathar philosophy. Equality of the sexes. Women, for thousands of years, have struggled to gain some form of equality across the board. Equality of the sexes. In the West, it is happening, thankfully more and more, but there's still a long way to go. The religions, all religions, treat women as second-class citizens. You know, they separate the men from the women, etc. We won't go into that. This is that one thing alone is why I couldn't belong to a religion. Long before I got involved in Catharism, it was my belief that men and women were absolutely entirely equal. Does the good God, the source, create a male or a female, anyone more important than the other? Of course not. They're both equal, and so they should be, and they are. Catharism. The thing about and why we shouldn't worry, and certainly from the Cathar point of view, Cathar Philosophy point of view, if at some point in your life you find that the Cathar idea of this unconditional love, total equality of the sexes, reincarnation, all the aspects of Catharism, it's unconditional love means that you're not out to go around killing anybody. There might be times that it may have to. It's a thing of beauty, and it's there to liberate you, to lift these rocks, the commandments and religious doctrines and all these things that are all man-made and made by a male, by a female, and they're there, and people carry them around day by day, believing in punishment, believing in guilt, believing in the day of judgment, believing in heaven and hell. They're rocks that they carry around from when they're taught as a child until the day they die. Catharism liberates you from all that. You walk around as a free spirit. You have your ups and downs, your highs and lows like everybody else, but you look at it from a totally different perspective. You know when there's a situation, a problem, it's there for you to learn something. It's, you get sick. If you didn't get sick, well, you wouldn't know how to fix it up or cure it or know how to go about it. Sometimes we get sick to tell us, hey, our diet may not be the best way for us to live. Sickness and illness has its purpose as well. But it liberates you. Catharism is about liberation, a liberation of, you're not feeling guilty about the body, mainly the body actions. That's a liberation. People worry about, is this a sin, is that a sin? The body is always innocent. If we're not harming anybody else. But religions tend to develop into moral controls. What we really need is an ethical, humanitarian approach to life. And crime is really when an individual's ethical rights are trampled upon. Catharism opens the mind, opens the body, and opens the soul. It's a philosophy of freedom of thought. That again makes it unique because there's this freedom, Gnostic freedom of thought that you develop and you think in your own way, on your own journey. And I have the same. So even though we're on the same path, heading in the same direction, we both have these different journeys. Each of us has a unique journey. If you're moving in the Cathar direction, it's a good thing. It's good for you. It's good for the world. And the good thing about it, once you do that, you're on that path. There's no going backwards, because you wouldn't want to go backwards. Throughout the world, there are hundreds, possibly thousands, I don't know, so I can't count them, of Cathars being reincarnated, who are here to join in the party once again, be part of this Catharism for a different age, modern Catharism, to be a part of it, contribute to it. And there, in some areas, there are groups, and others, it's simply an individual journey. But Catharism has returned, it's here to stay, and it returned as predicted by William Balabast 700 years ago, last August, when he said, the laurel will grow green again. In 700 years, the laurel will grow green again. And it's happening, and it's a good thing for the world, for the planet, for all of us. Because we can all do with more liberation of the mind and freedom of the spirit. Bye for now.